Hey everyone, TJ here on behalf of Mako Sports. Today we're doing something a little bit different. So this is going to be the first episode in my series on how to film or shoot lacrosse. So for this first episode, we'll be looking at camera equipment, specifically just cameras and lenses, because that's a really easy subject to get over with. And then we get into the more like technical aspects, like how to shoot and how to get certain shots later on. So for this first episode, like I said, we'll be focusing on cameras as well as lenses. Now, there's going to be two forms of cameras that I'll be focusing on within this video. So we'll be talking about mirrorless cameras as well as fixed lensed camcorders. Now, later on, I will be doing a comparison video to mirrorless cameras with interchangeable lenses compared to fixed lens camcorders like this one. So stay tuned for that video coming up soon. Now, there are a number of cameras on this list, but really the main reasons why these cameras are on this list are because of two features. So they have 4K capabilities, so they can do 4K 24p, 30 frames per second, as well as some of them can do 60 frames a second. Now, what's really more important is that they're doing 4K 24 because I like 4K 24 for my standard shots like B-roll, as well as huddles and just the occasional shots that you might want to punch in for future edits later on. And really the most important part is that they do 120 frames per second in 1080p, so that'll give you 80% slow motion, which is going to be super smooth and slow for those really epic shots. So that's really, I'd say, probably the most important feature that we're going to have on these cameras, so that way it'll give you some really nice slow motion. Now that's just because I found that 60 frames per second is just a little bit too slow for lacrosse. So really you're going to want to have that 120 frames per second. Now, like I said, all the cameras on this list I'm about to mention are going to have that 120 frames per second slow motion, and some of them will actually do a little bit more, 180 frames per second as well as 240 frames per second for one of them. Now, due to these two separate specifications, this budget range is going to sit between $1,000 to $3,000, which might be a little bit more than what some of you were looking to spend, but I have two notes to go along with that. But like I said, between $1,000 to $3,000 USD, possibly a little bit more depending on which lens as well as body choice you prefer to go with. Now, two things, like I said, to go along with that last statement. I plan to do a sub $1,000 rig. So that way, those of you that are on a lower budget can still be able to shoot some nice lacrosse as well, do a little bit of slow motion here and there. Now, if you're still on the fence about shooting lacrosse in its entirety, because it is a large investment to get the right equipment, then I would recommend at least renting a lens as well as a body online, or possibly from your local camera store. You can do that usually. And with that, you can still test drive it and see if this is really what you're looking to do. All right, so I have a list on my phone here with a number of cameras that I recommend for shooting lacrosse. Like I said earlier, these all have similar specifications, but most namely, like I said, that 4K 24 and that 120 frames per second. So I have a number of manufacturers to list off. So first, starting with Sony, I'd recommend the A6300. I'll be doing picture overlays so that we can kind of see what they look like. So like I said, A6300, A6400, A6500, the Sony A7S II, as well as the Sony A7 III. For Panasonic, I would recommend the GH4 on the low end. You can set up to the G9, the GH5, and at the upper end, you're going to be looking at the GH5S. For Fuji cameras that I recommend for video, be looking at the Fuji X-H1, X-T3, and the X-T30, which was just released a couple of days ago, I believe. And for fixed lens video cameras, I would recommend the Sony PXW-Z90, which is this guy here, the Sony NX80, as well as the Panasonic AGU-X180 and the HC-X1. For Canon, I recommend the Canon XF400 and the XF405. So if you decide to go with the mirrorless system, which I expect most of you will, lenses is where it can get to be a little bit confusing. But really, I'm gonna go ahead and list off a couple, but for here, I'm just gonna do like a quick outlier. So 70 to 300, 70 to 200 f4, 70 to 200 2.8, 100 to 400. So really what you're looking for is just have a nice long zoom range, specifically over 150 millimeters, really over 135 millimeters to be honest. Any less than that, then you won't be able to get the like close-up shots, or if you're on one end of the field, you won't be able to get to the other end by just zooming your lens. You won't be able to have that correct field of view. Now on my kit page, which is going to be kit.com/makosports, it'll take you over there and you can see like pictures of these camera bodies and lenses. And if you click those links, it'll take you to those websites, which will be either Amazon or B&H. And from there, you can see pricing as well as availability. So that's gonna be it for this first one in the series. Now, like I said, the next video will probably be mirrorless cameras or interchangeable lens camera systems versus fixed lens camcorders like this guy. So that way you'll be able to see that comparison there. And then after that, we'll be talking about actually shooting, getting the kind of shots you want for your edits, as well as camera settings, so you can get the best possible image quality out of your cameras for these edits. So that's it for this first one here. If you guys enjoyed the video or found it helpful, be sure to like it, subscribe to the channel for more content, and thank you for watching.